I've never been the type of man who enjoys being the center of attention. I'm the quiet one at parties, the person who listens more than he speaks. But when I started dating Madison, she brought color into my life. She was confident, sharp, and carried a magnetic presence that drew everyone toward her. I used to admire that about her, until that same confidence slowly turned into a weapon she used against me. It began subtly, with small jokes she made when we were around her friends. At first, I laughed along because they sounded harmless. Ethan's the kind of guy who reads instructions before putting together a chair. She'd tease, and everyone would laugh. I'd smile too, pretending it didn't sting. But over time, the jokes grew sharper, and the laughter grew louder. Last Friday, she invited me to dinner with her coworkers. I didn't really want to go. It had been a long week, and honestly, I just wanted a quiet night. But she insisted, saying it was important I meet people who actually have ambition. That should have been my first warning. The restaurant was one of those trendy rooftop spots with dim lighting and overpriced cocktails. Her friends were already there when we arrived, all perfectly dressed and laughing about some inside joke. I tried to blend in, smiled, made small talk, but the moment Madison started drinking, I felt it. That shift in energy. The moment she stopped being my girlfriend and became a performer. "So, Ethan," one coworker said, "Madison says you're in logistics. That sounds stable." I caught the subtle jab in her tone. Madison smirked, sipping her wine. "Yeah," she cut in before I could respond. "He's basically the guy who makes sure boxes end up where they're supposed to. It's cute, right?" They laughed. All of them. I sat there, jaw tight, face burning. I looked at Madison, hoping for even a hint of apology, but all I saw was amusement. She loved it. The attention, the laughter, the ego boost at my expense. I tried to brush it off. I smiled, even added a small joke of my own, but it didn't stop. As the night went on, every story she told painted me as serious or boring. When weekend plans came up, she laughed and said, "Ethan's idea of fun is grocery shopping without a list." More laughter, more humiliation. At one point, I excused myself and went to the restroom just to breathe. The man staring back at me in the mirror looked unfamiliar, quiet, cornered, exhausted. I stood there wondering how we'd ended up here. We used to be a team. We used to lift each other up. Now I was just another punchline. When I returned, they were laughing again. Madison saw me, smirked, and said, "Oh, look, he's back. Did you finally figure out which hand the fork goes in?" That was it. Something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. I didn't argue or roll my eyes. I simply picked up my jacket from the chair. Madison noticed, her smile fading. "Where are you going?" she asked, still half laughing. I looked at her. The woman who once made me feel seen, now looked at me like I was an accessory she'd grown bored of. "You said I could leave," I said quietly. "So I am." The table fell silent. The air shifted. Someone laughed awkwardly, trying to ease the tension, but I didn't stay to see the outcome. I walked out without looking back. The cool night air hit my face like a wake-up call. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew I couldn't return to that table, or that version of myself, again. I walked for blocks, replaying every comment, every smirk, every careless insult I'd ignored for months. By the time I reached home, it wasn't anger I felt. It was emptiness, heavy and hollow. I sat in the dark as my phone buzzed with her messages. Confusion, then anger, then guilt. I didn't reply. For the first time in months, I didn't feel the need to explain myself. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the blinds like nothing had changed. My phone kept vibrating. Madison cycled through anger, guilt, and desperation within hours. "You overreacted. Can we talk?" "I didn't mean it like that." "Are you really doing this?" I read every message in silence. For once, I let the silence speak for me. I made coffee and sat by the window where we used to sit on Sundays. She'd talk about her dreams, travel, promotions, everything she wanted. I always listened like it mattered more than my own. That morning, I realized I'd built my life around her goals, her comfort, her approval. I'd been so focused on being enough for her that I forgot how it felt to be enough for myself. Around noon, she showed up at my apartment. I heard the knock and didn't move at first. When it didn't stop, I opened the door. She looked different. Not angry, not smug, just lost. "Ethan," she said softly, "can we talk?" I stepped aside. She wandered like she didn't know where to sit, then stopped by the table. "I drank too much," she said. "I didn't mean to hurt you. It was just jokes." "I know," I replied. She looked surprised. "Then why? Did you leave like that? You made me look like the bad guy." I met her eyes. "Because you were." The silence that followed was heavy, exposing a truth neither of us wanted to face. "I've always supported you, Madison," I said quietly, "even when it was hard. But last night wasn't the first time you made me feel small. It was just the first time I stopped pretending it didn't hurt." Her eyes filled. "So that's it? You're done?" I took a slow breath. "I didn't leave because of one dinner. I left because you stopped seeing me a long time ago." Her voice cracked. "I thought you liked my confidence." "I did," I said softly, "until it turned into cruelty." She had no answer. She just stood there, shoulders heavy, finally understanding what it had cost. Her hands trembled as she fidgeted with her bracelet, the same one I'd given her last Christmas. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. "You already did," I replied gently. I watched her fall apart, not from anger, but from understanding. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty for leaving. I wasn't walking away to hurt her. I was leaving because staying had begun to hurt me. She left quietly, without slamming the door. I stood there for a long while, listening to the sound of her footsteps fade down the hallway. That evening, I drove to the coast. It wasn't planned. I just needed space, somewhere vast enough to hold all the silence I'd been carrying. The ocean was calm, the air heavy with salt and endings. I sat on the sand, watching the waves move in and out, steady and sure. I thought about all the times I tried to fix things by being more patient, more understanding, more forgiving. But sometimes walking away isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the only way to remind yourself that you deserve peace. My phone buzzed again. A new message from Madison. "I hope you're happy." I stared at the words for a long time. Then I typed back, "I will be." And for once, I meant it. The days that followed were quiet, but honest. I spent evenings reading again, cooking food I actually enjoyed, calling old friends I'd lost touch with. There was a strange comfort in the loneliness. Not emptiness, but space. Space to remember who I was before I became someone else's reflection. Weeks later, I ran into one of Madison's friends from that dinner. She looked uncomfortable, unsure of what to say. "Hey, Ethan," she said. "I heard things ended between you two." "Sorry about that," I said, smiling genuinely. "Don't be. It ended the way it needed to." She nodded slowly. "She misses you, you know." "Maybe," I said, "but I don't miss the version of me that loved her." That night, I came home, turned on soft music, and sat on the balcony watching the city lights glow. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was waiting for someone to understand me. Madison taught me a lot about love, pride, and the thin line between teasing and tearing someone down. But more than anything, she taught me that sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't to fight for someone to see your worth, but to walk away the moment they stop looking. And I did. Without shouting, without slammed doors, just a man reclaiming his dignity, one quiet step at a time.